Aloha, everyone. On behalf of the state's Department of Business, Economic Development, and Tourism, welcome and thank you for joining us for this Pathways to Recovery webinar covering the topic of housing related to the Maui wildfires relief support. The intention of today's webinar is to provide you with up-to-date information straight from our partners, including FEMA, the Hawaii Housing Finance and Development Corporation, American Red Cross, to answer your questions. Please note that the information that's provided is current as of today, September 7th, 2023. We will go through the questions that have been submitted to us and answer as many as we can. And in the event that we run out of time before we've gotten to all of the questions, we will compile the answers that we've received and provide the information to those that have registered. Also, a recording of the webinar will be available. If you have questions during this webinar, please submit them via the Q&A function within the Zoom platform. And with that, I'd like to introduce our panelists. Joining us today, we have Sidney Melton, Housing Task Force Lead from FEMA, Dean Minakami, Interim Executive Director of the Hawaii Housing Finance and Development Corporation, Erin McCann, Division Disaster State Relations Director from the American Red Cross, and last but not least, James Kunane Tokioka, Director of the Department of Business, Economic Development, and Tourism. And with that, I will turn it to Director Tokioka for some opening remarks.
Thank you very much, Lacey, and aloha to you all. It's with heavy heart that we have these meetings. Everyone on this call, I'm sure that is in this space at the convention center, wish that we could all be there. But we wanted to make sure that we reach out. 2 weeks ago when we had a meeting, I said we want to be your conduit to questions and answers that all of you need during this really, really tough time. I can assure you that every agency that is in the Hawaii Convention Center is working tirelessly every single day and every single night. Many of the people from FEMA are here 6 o'clock in the morning to 7 o'clock at night, along with the state teams, and us connecting with the county to make sure that we're lockstep. In the first 2 and 3 weeks of the fires, it was incumbent upon us to just work as a group here and give as much information as we can to the counties, and we've done that over the weeks. Many of us have flown over to meet with the mayor and his team, because whatever we do, we want to be lockstep with the county. We also know that they're very busy during this time, so we're gathering information. I wish people could see the work effort that's here at the building. So we want to thank, as Lacey said, FEMA, HAIMA, SBA, Red Cross, HUD, and many of the state agencies, and of course the county who we've been working with. So, I want to make sure that you utilize us as your conduit. I know that we're not going to be able to answer all the questions that were sent in, but we will do our best to answer as many of the questions as possible. Sid Melton with HUD is one of the senior guys. He's been a man that has been all over the country working on disasters. He's been a great asset since he and his team came to the convention center to work alongside of us. So I'm going to introduce Sid Melton, and we have some questions that were sent in to Sid. And Sid Melton, Lacey, if we can ask Sid the questions that were sent in.
Sure, no problem. So the first question that we received was, how does a company with 200 modular homes available to ship to Maui contact? So we do have an email address for that, for inquiries like that, and I can put that in the chat. Another question that we received for FEMA was, what about those of us with total job loss? How can we pay rent without unemployment? And does FEMA have rental assistance if your house isn't gone? So with that, we'll turn that over to Sidney.
Yes, aloha all. And again, before we get started with that, just again, condolences and sadness on everyone's loss that has been impacted by the event. And again, as Jimmy stated, we are here as a federal partner to work with the state and local entities in order to help provide a recovery solution as we move forward. As far as that question goes, it's we're going to drop a a form inside this chat that's going to give you a link to where you can go to sign up for disaster unemployment assistance. And as we try to tell everyone, don't try to guess what FEMA programs you may qualify or may not. If you can go ahead and call the 800-621 FEMA or 3362. Again, that's your, and if you have registered, visit one of the local DRCs located throughout the area that are located at the Mayor Hannibal Tavares Community Center or the Lahaina Civic Center or the Maui College Community Service Building.
All right, thank you. And we'll turn it back to Director Tokioka.
Well, thank you, Lexi. So I'm sure everyone on this call knows how busy the governor is, but I asked him if he could come on in the beginning to share some thoughts. And I'm sure a lot of his thoughts are going to be answering some of the questions that people have. And so the governor is on screen. I also believe that that's F9, who is Bob Fenton. Is that you, Bob? There he is. Gov, you have the mic. Gov, go ahead.
Hey, hello, everyone. Thank you for welcoming me to this meeting. There's just a lot to share. Tomorrow marks 1 month from the disaster, as you know, and I'll be making quite a lot of updates and announcements tomorrow. I will say this, first of all, I'm grateful to everyone, especially FEMA and their teams, for helping us so much through this phase of the recovery. The month turning point is significant in that we have to begin to pivot towards how we're going to house everyone for the longer term. That's a huge part of today's conversation, obviously, and Jimmy's at the point of this effort with us. Also, we just finished, for example, another important conversation with the Deputy Director of HUD, the Deputy Secretary. So conversations are going on at every level for us to begin to pivot to recovery. There's really more to share than I could in a brief moment, but a couple of things. I'll try to give you highlights, of course. You know what our casualty numbers look like. You know what the searches look like for the most part. It's 115 lost souls. And the search and recovery process is really now trying to match missing persons reports. So that's where we are with that. And so it's heartbreaking. It is heartbreaking. We have over 7,000 people in housing, and they will be transitioned over to longer term housing. That means, for example, many thousands of Airbnbs to be turned into long-term housing. We're gonna need help with that. It's gonna be all hands on deck to do that. As we get them stable for 18 months, then we can begin to do some of the longer term solutions of building. For the purposes of dealing with the damage and destruction in Lahaina, Bob and his team with the Army Corps of Engineers are moving very thoughtfully and ahead at the best pace they can. There are thousands of properties. There's upwards of 3,000 homes or structures that were damaged. They're moving quickly through the recovery. I believe it was almost 300 lots have already been assessed for hazards for the EPA. And after they've done the full EPA hazard assessment, then comes the debris cleanup, which will take, first the hazards are going to probably take 3 months, and then the EPA's job doesn't end, but if we move to debris cleanup, and that takes another 6 to 9 months.
Yeah, if I could add an important piece in there, one of the things we'll do is when we finish the hazards and the safety inspections, we want to make sure that we work with the county and they have a reentry plan to allow individuals to come back to their property and and look at their property, especially if there's any personal effects that you want to retrieve. So that will happen through the county. That will be happening in different phases at different areas at times. And then what we'll do is we'll have meetings with through virtual and town halls to get rights of entry. And what we need from the public is them to provide a right of entry for us to eventually clear their debris.
Exactly. So now that all goes on. Meanwhile, simultaneously, we have to deal with what's going on in the region. And I think this is something that probably this particular meeting needs to hear. So we are right now socializing the details of when to reopen. West Maui, when to reopen West Maui. I'm trending right now to October 8th. So the fire occurred, as you know, on August 8th. Tomorrow is September 8th, and we will open up all of West Maui, it appears, on October 8th, fully recognizing that it won't be open the way it was, and of course recognizing that Lahaina, the impact zone is going to be in the hands of Bob and team to work through. But we're trying to balance economic survival and people's needs to have their jobs and do what they can to help their families as we rebuild and recover. That's likely to be announced statewide tomorrow, followed by, of course, a much broader plan of recovery. $25 million will go to small businesses for short-term bridges, $10,000 and $20,000 loans potential respectively. So for instance, a small business may get $10,000, a modest sized business, which Jimmy can begin to work through some of the details yes, I'll answer that question, for $20,000. Yes, opening businesses on the 8th of October, to the extent that they can. I mean, some people will have to ask the questions, do they have the infrastructure up and ready? There are some businesses that actually wanted us to open today or before. There's a lot of things being done, and it's going to be very challenging. So we do have lots of support in place. We have hundreds of National Guard. We have all that we can have right now in place to make sure that the site is secure. But these are large questions that are going to continue to be addressed. Just because tomorrow marks a month doesn't mean we'll have every answer. There are other large amounts of money that are going to come for recovery. As you know, the philanthropic community has been extraordinary, going to Hawaii Community Foundation and American Red Cross, the Maui United Way. People will start to see, in addition to the support that FEMA offered to thousands and thousands of people, they're also going to see monthly support go to individuals through like the Red Cross and through TANF funds, which is temporary assistance for needy families, which I'm authorizing up to $100 million for that. And this is all part and parcel of getting through this worst part of the crisis to a time when people are stable in their homes. Many have returned to their jobs if they weren't lost completely. For example, the hotels will be open, some restaurants will begin to open, and then we'll be able to see the much larger rebuild. So this is important. Someone asked, where do you sign up for transitional housing? You need to register with FEMA. Bob, do you want to comment on that?
Yeah, everything starts with registration through our system, disasterassistance.gov, or download the FEMA app, or 1-800-621-FEMA, 1-800-621-3362. The first thing that we provided individuals was a $700 for those that were affected, that had to move out of the area. We call it critical needs assistance, and we've provided that to thousands of individuals. The next thing we started doing is for those that have been displaced from their house, that's a renter or a primary homeowner, we provided rental assistance, and that has been on average about $3,500, and it's different depending on how big your house was, 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, 3 bedroom. And then the next thing we've done is for those whose house is destroyed as a primary homeowner that's uninsured, we've gone ahead and provided funding to repair, replace that house. So there's many different funds that you can get from us. There's also the ability to get funding for transportation assistance, for helping with those that unfortunately lost loved ones with funeral costs. And so what I recommend is start applying. A great place to go if you have questions is to the Civic Center. We have a disaster recovery center there that not only are there caseworkers from FEMA there to help you directly, but many other federal agencies, nonprofits, states, and local agencies that have programs there that will help you not only with the FEMA questions, but also help you with other federal agencies. And then one of the things we do is we refer your application to other agencies that may have programs that will help you. For example, SBA is another one, not just for businesses, but for individuals that may be eligible.
Yes. So you can see how much support's there. I mean, FEMA's here for the long haul. In addition to, there's now over 1,000 individuals from federal agencies. For the purposes of what people will feel, sign up so that we can get you housing. One just interesting reality is that about half of all the people in Lahaina were connected somehow in the working class to like the ILWU workers that were working at hotels or their families. That's a large cohort of people that are all working together to go into housing. And then there's some people that were just in a totally different space. They ran their own small business, a jewelry business that will get maybe a $20,000 grant. But in addition to that, we'll have all the opportunities of housing and everything else too. So this is not a time for people to be shy and not sign up. If I can be blunt, I understand that historically there can be some apprehension about working with government, but in this particular case, we just really need people to, if they don't sign up, I won't be able to find direct help. Beyond the 18 months and maybe in and around 2024, we will start building some housing. That's being discussed right now. That's kind of a transitional, like a bridge to the future. It is not about rebuilding Lahaina. That's a community decision that's going to be made. But there will be resources for that. There are also going to be some solutions for the 200 or so individuals that were houseless before. There's just a lot of work going on. But those are the highlights, if I can share with you, Jimmy. And I understand there's a few hundred people on this call, which is excellent. For those who are suffering and struggling, just ask us for what you need and we'll do all we can. For those who have resources on this call, who have businesses on Oahu, who are otherwise somehow capable with extra properties, make sure that you reach out to Director Tokioka and to Mr. Fenton, to Bob, because we are going to be going into contracts with people to, if someone were to own a timeshare building, if someone were to own multiple houses that aren't damaged, we may very well be able to do a long contract for 18 months to help move people into that space.
Yeah, and the governor's exactly right. So typically what we try to do is just what we did at the beginning of this event is move people really quick out of congregate shelters, get them out of the gyms, get them off the cots, and move them into a better situation. And working with the state, the county, and Red Cross, we're able to quickly move people into hotel rooms, and plus the capacity and working with the hotels and their great work to accept them and work with us to help them. That really helped out because not only were we able to get them into a much better suitable housing situation, we were able to also get Red Cross to do some case management so we had to better understand their unique needs. The next step, as the governor's saying, is we really want to get people into a much better situation while we continue to clean up and remove the debris from Lahaina. And so that's an 18-month to 2-year solution. And that's going to be many different options. And so in FEMA, what we have is the ability to do direct housing. How we could directly help those individuals that are primary homeowners, renters, with a potential direct option. And what does that look like? That may mean us leasing from you a apartment or a timeshare or an Airbnb that would be available for about 18 months. And then what we would do is we would then sublease it to one of the individuals that lost everything, to an individual or a family unit. Sid Melton, that was speaking earlier on there, you can wave Sid, is our guy that's looking at all the different solutions. And so, whether we direct lease or, do we build something in an area that allows housing, we'll look at all those options. But if you do have units are available, there's 2 ways. One is individuals who have been given rental assistance by us, and they could go to you directly and rent themselves, and we will continue to provide them rental assistance, and we could do that up to 18 months. So they are getting money based on the fair market rental rate set by HUD for Maui, and we can continue to provide that. 2 is we could direct lease for them and secure it, and then become the landlord to lease back to those individuals for 18 months. But we're looking for things for longer term, right? We're not looking for 21 days or a month. We're looking really for 18-month availability to 2 years potentially.
And I understand. I'm going to just piggyback on what Bob is saying. So I recognize someone who owns an Airbnb is thinking to themselves, look, I normally generated $10,000 or $12,000 a month from that property. However, in this time of need, we're humbly asking for people to come in much lower, but give them guarantees for this length of time. And it's just a necessity for us. I will also say, and I probably need to be a little bit blunt here, there are going to be ups and downs in what happens in West Maui going forward. There's a lot of work. There's going to be a lot of construction. It's going to be difficult. And I can't guarantee it's going to be a smooth tourism experience for people who are renting their Airbnbs. This might be a way to mitigate risk, but to help people at the same time. Finally, I should add, tomorrow you will hear me talk a little bit about our position on helping people who have been traumatized beyond just even loss of property. This is loss of life in their family or friends. We are going to very likely create a comprehensive recovery fund so that we can bring money to people directly rather than them having to wait 4, 5, 6 years in the legal process before they can get some significant recovery. It will be a very substantial fund. I can't tell you how many millions will go into that fund, but I can tell you that this was done with 9/11 and other large disasters, and it will tend to be much faster. It would certainly be much faster. It will tend to be much more lucrative because there won't be someone hacking away 30, 35% of the funds through the legal process. And I understand that it's totally appropriate for people to have representation, but we're going to try to help people before that they come to that point, because I don't want people to suffer for great lengths of time and not be able to rebuild their home or not be able to keep their family here. So that's another thing that you'll hear me mention tomorrow. Jimmy, I've covered a fair number of things, just very, just at the superficial level. Is there anything that you want me to address more deeply, or is there something I could help with more? I see there's a lot of questions there. I'm gonna have to defer to you to answer any of them.
Yes, Gov. And so when we had the meetings last week, we made a commitment that our best tool at this time is communication. So I let everybody who knew on that call, was on that call last week, that we would do these webinars, once or twice a week to try to get as much information out to today's today was housing. We're going to have all kinds of other relief programs and all the programs that people are asking us questions to. But that was the biggest question that people had was, what about housing? How can I get into programs? So that's why we have these people on. We reached out to others, and everybody's time is tight right now. But we really do appreciate you, Gov, being on, and Bob being on at this time, because a lot of the questions that people had initially, you answered in the topics that you and Bob went over. So thank you for that.
Sure, I'd be honored to come on to all of your calls as you need. And I think people are going to have updated questions, I'm sure. Right. Just my humble advice is sign up now, sooner rather than later, so that we have a little extra time to try to find you the right spot and get people into a stable living position, get their jobs back as we open. And then the more complex questions of building or relocation or settlement and healing, all of that can come when we're in a stable spot. So just thank you, everyone, for such understanding and your generosity. I know even people who are suffering have been very generous in the way they've shared what they have. So thank you for that, everyone.
And if I could just add, Jimmy, to that, and just really appreciate the partnership of the governor and his team, and you, Jimmy. 30 days into this, we're halfway through the application period. It's usually a 60-day application period, so please register. And not only that, but we understand there's a lot of complexities with those living there. Some multi-generational families. Sometimes in our system, you may get a letter that we need more information, or your claim's on hold, or maybe trying to verify that you live there. And so just look at that documentation. Again, if you have any concerns, or if you get something that says you're not eligible and you don't understand why, go to that disaster recovery center and sit down with one of our specialists and walk through it. There's many issues, as you can imagine. We've had 14,000 people apply, that sometimes the system auto-generates something, and it's just based on how you keyed in information, right? And so take an opportunity to go talk to someone in person, and go understand that, and they'll actually help you. There's templates they can provide on data that they may need. They're there to help you. We're here to service you and help you through this event. We know that it's been a horrific event, and you've lost a lot. And last thing we want to do is cause more bureaucracy. So the team's there to help you personally, one-on-one, and help you through this. And so go see them, let them do that for you, and also tell them your needs, because as you have that discussion with them, they could put in system other needs you may have that maybe a solution, maybe another federal agency, maybe a state agency, maybe a nonprofit organization, maybe it's going to be philanthropy, all the different resources the governor talked about. It will help connect to those other systems and allow us to know, what your personal needs are. So we look forward to helping you. We will also make sure that we are here not only at the beginning of this, but all the way to the end, and look forward to working with each and every one of you.
Yeah, thank you both. So real quick, Bob, to follow up on that. So for anybody who's watching, I've had the opportunity to work side by side with Bob from FEMA, and I will also share that I lived through Iniki, and the FEMA back then is not the FEMA today. FEMA, Bob, you and your crew have done an excellent job. Sid is here. I cannot tell you how cooperative working with Sid and all your people here has been. And to anybody who's watching this that doesn't trust FEMA, I would say you should come and see the work that they do here. You should trust that, the way that you're going to get help during this time is registering with FEMA and the Red Cross. So thank you for that. And there's a question here that is, or just comment, that 3 months is the minimum to return initially and have closure. I can tell you that there's not a moment of the day that Governor Green doesn't struggle with this question. He texts me at 4 o'clock in the morning, thank you, Gov. And I'm not talking once in a while, often, because, there is never going to be a right way to do this. But yesterday, members of the ILWU, the leadership, in fact, the president was here at the convention center, and he told me they have to add to what you said, Gov, 2,700 employees in just the Ka'anapali to Kapalua area. 2,700 total. Of the 2,700, 1,700 lost a lot. So, we are very sensitive to everybody's concern. The governor and I spent many, night and day talking to people about when is the right time. I'm not sure anybody's going to say this is the perfect time, but the businesses and employees, especially our employees, our wait staff, bar staff, the housekeepers, they're hemorrhaging, they're struggling, and they need some activities and work to do. So we need to be very, very cognizant of that. And again, we have been sensitive, we are sensitive, and we'll continue to be sensitive. Not sure if any decision is going to be the perfect decision, but as the governor has said in the past, the lessons we learned from COVID is not being precise and consistent with when we open. So, I just appreciate you, Gov, taking all of the calls and the questions in and, making a decision, because that's what people expect from us, is the leadership. Whether some may agree or some may not agree, we're listening to all of the different groups, and we made a decision. So thank you for that.
Of course. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Gov. So we'll continue back on with the questions. I think Bob answered a lot of the FEMA questions for now. I know there are a couple of Red Cross questions. So Lacey, can we go to the Red Cross questions for now?
Sure. So this might be for Red Cross or FEMA, but the question is, can I apply for housing program assistance even if I don't own a house?
I'll leave it.
Lacey, I'm happy to answer as far as Red Cross goes. We currently have a program called non-congregate sheltering at this time, and non-congregate sheltering is the hotel program. You can register for what we call NCS at this time by calling 1-800-RED-CROSS. You can also head right into the Disaster Recovery Center and speak with a Red Cross representative and sign up for those programs. On top of that, we have a financial assistance program that can help with any financial needs that you all have. In order to register for that, you can also call 1-800-RED Cross, talk to those liaisons at the DRCs or the disaster recovery centers, or you can go to redcross.org/HI help to register and make an appointment to speak with a Red Crosser specifically. That doesn't dive into housing specific assistance, but that does, if you are a renter, you are living in the Lahaina area and you were affected by the fire, we are here to help in any way we can. And so sorry for what the community has been through.
And if I just have to reiterate, I go back to what Bob said, register 1-800-621-FEMA. And then you're going to be able to work. And then depending on what these eligibility determination is, you can go to that disaster recovery center and talk to somebody in person about what your particular needs are. But 1-800-621-FEMA is the way to start the process. So we want to reiterate that that is critical for everything moving forward.
Okay, I just want to add something. Erin, do you know how many desks you have at the hotels in the Ka'anapali to Kapalua area where people on that side of the island could get assistance? Because I think every place that there's a Red Cross desk, there's a FEMA desk. Is that accurate?
I don't know if at every location there's a FEMA desk as well as a Red Cross desk at each of the hotels. We currently have 29 hotels that we're contracted with for the non-congruent sheltering. If it is at a disaster recovery center, then we definitely have a location there with FEMA as well. In the hotels, if they are looking for support, they can definitely talk to any of the Red Crossers that are there, and they have information about how to register for FEMA as well, and can make sure that if you want to register for FEMA, if you haven't done that so far, they can help you do that as well, even if FEMA is not on site.
Okay, Lacey, back to you.
Yes, so this again could be for maybe both FEMA and Red Cross, but there's a small business owner that income has stopped since the fire, and they're wondering what help can they get for rent, food, other income.
Sid, would you like to take? Yeah, go for it.
Well, I'll just talk a little bit. You can do the disaster unemployment assistance. You can sign up. You can go to the SBA. But again, all those are options. But go ahead and sign up 800-621-FEMA, and we will be dropping in the disaster unemployment information into the chat for people to use as well.
And then just more of a general question, how many programs are there and do they vary? FEMA or Sid, are you able to touch on that?
Yeah, I think from a standpoint of for individual assistance, you've got two basic programs that it's financial and direct assistance. Bob highlighted on this. You know, you sign up with FEMA, and you get deemed that you're eligible for rental assistance. That's where you can get your 2 months rental assistance. Then you can take that and go out and find you a location. Then you can work with FEMA on what your requirement is for continued rental assistance for what he mentioned, up to 18 months. And then as Bob mentioned, the other, if we start direct leasing where FEMA leases the apartments and you've deemed eligible for the direct housing, then we could put you in those apartments for up to 18 months, depending on your situation.
Okay, so what I want to do now, Lacey, if it's okay, is I want to turn it over to Dean, because I want Dean to share some of the programs that he has created with HHFDC, Hawaii Housing Finance and Development Corporation, talk about the Hawaii Fire Relief Program. So Dean, turn it over to you.
Thanks, Jimmy. Good afternoon, everyone. The Hawaii Fire Relief Program, the objective of that is to match property owners who have a apartment, a B&B, or even just a room available to rent to those who were displaced by the fires. And as the governor mentioned, And as is mentioned on our website, we really are encouraging homeowners or property owners to rent their properties at a substantially reduced rate, given the hardship that has been encountered by the survivors. So the way it works is property owners can submit a property to our office for listing. Staff here vets each listing. They contact the property owner to verify that it is a bona fide property and they have the ability to rent it. And after that's done, then we add it to a list, which is available on our website. And there's also a map of the property. So I'll share my screen now and show you, what it looks like on our website. Okay, so this is the, if you just Google Hawaii Fire Relief Program, you'll find this page, and you can either download the inventory of properties here. There's over 600 properties statewide now, but you can also there's also a map tool here that you can use to look at the properties. So you can see many properties on Maui. So for example, if you zoom in and want to find something in the Wailuku area, and each listing is color coded by price. So from 0 to 500 is this brown color, and it goes up to 3,000 and above. So if you want to screen out all the ones above 3,000, then you can look for the ones that are blue or green or brown. So if you click on a property, for example, here in Wailuku, it'll show up that it's a 2-bedroom, 3-bathroom home offered for up to $1,000 and $2,000, and it's available for more than 12 months. And to contact the person, their email is here, and you can just contact them to find out, you can see the property, what specific rent do they want, what terms are there, is there parking, do they allow pets? You can ask them all those questions. And I'll note that, I know most of you want to stay on Maui. That's completely understandable. But we do have people who have offered properties, statewide. There are properties in every single county. A number on Hawaii Island, a number on Oahu. So if you're looking to just temporarily relocate, maybe you lost your job and you're looking for a job on Oahu for just a few months, then there are housing options on Oahu here. So for example, same thing if you're looking at, let's say the Salt Lake area, 2-bedroom, 2-bath house, available for 12 months. Asking rent is between $2,000 and $3,000. So this is one tool that we put together to help those who are displaced to find longer term housing. And we're going to be reaching out to these property owners to encourage them to extend their period that they're going to rent their properties for. Some of them indicated that they only want to rent it for 6 months or less. So we're putting the word out to them that really at this point what's needed is longer term housing, because people have temporary housing now in hotels or friends and family, and we know that you need longer term, more permanent housing to settle down into. Okay, and so thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Dean. And so, we were really satisfied with the site when it came up. I didn't think it was going to be as effective as it has been, but it's been a great tool. Thank you very much, Dean. So I will say to everyone who's watching this that, it was important for us to try to keep as many people as we could on Maui, but we also opened it up to the rest of the state because, a lot of service industry people were affected in Lahaina. So if you're a waiter or a bartender or in a retail job, you had that opportunity to go to the Big Island or Oahu, Waikiki. There's a labor shortage on every single island. So yes, we wanted to try to keep people in the area that they lost everything, but we also knew that it'd be hard for them to find work there. So we gave these options, and hopefully, as we can see, I will, read off some numbers. People that were placed in Hawaii Island were 8 families, on Oahu 21, on Kauai 5, on Maui 147. So the program certainly is working, and in less than a week, Dean had the framework done, and in less than 2 weeks, we had the site up. So thank you very much for that, Dean. Lacey, back to you.
Okay, so I think this question may be for Dean, but it's what are government officials doing to keep vacation rental owners from hosting their vacant units on the fire relief housing program at full price?
Sure, that's a good question. As the governor stated, and as it's on our website also, that we encourage people to not to charge market rent, but to reduce or to list their properties at a reasonable rate. But we also understand that each situation is unique, and each property owner has their own expenses that they have to cover. So we decided early on that we weren't going to exclude anyone from listing their properties. We do, however, categorize the requested rent so people can see what rent is being charged, and if that rent is too high, then folks looking for housing can just choose to bypass those listings.
Sid, you wanna? Okay. Yeah, so it's a choice, it's a market, and people can choose to go on or not. I know Sid has to go. I don't know, Lacey, if we have any additional questions for FEMA housing. I think pretty much Bob covered a lot of it. So thank you, Sid, for being here. And I know this is not going to be your last time. So thank you for your input on this issue. Okay. Lacey?
Yeah, so another question, I think for Dean, is if the fire relief housing program supports or works with Red Cross on their non-congregate shelter program.
Well, it's a separate program. The American Red Cross non-congregate shelter program is, I believe, primarily for hotels. And what we reached out to is more the homeowners, apartment owners, B&B owners who can make their properties available for a temporary period or extended duration for those displaced by the fires.
Okay, and then another question about HHFDC is if if you will fast track build more affordable homes of all prices, because the families that were built, I guess, as add-ons to the Lahaina Luna helped house lots of additional people affordably, and now that's gone.
I can try to help with that question too. So
Okay.
That is a county question. And we're gonna be meeting with the county to try to get people from the county on here. But I know that the county is also doing their own talk stories and Zoom webinars. But that's more along the line of the county, unless you want to add anything to that, Dean.
Yeah, I just related what you said. I agree with that. It's a county decision where rebuilding will occur and how quickly it's going to occur. We are looking at additional financing that is available from the federal government for affordable housing developments. So we are exploring that to see how that could supplement and rebuild the inventory of affordable housing that was lost in Lahaina. There were over 500, almost 550 affordable units that were lost in the fire.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So for people to know, like 807 acres of property damage in Lahaina. Of the total damage of acres is 2,077. But some of that was vacant fallow land. And the total destruction of properties is 2,655 properties that were damaged, 2,077 totally damaged. So there is a lot of construction that's going to need to happen. I will tell you that we've been meeting with the unions because the trades for the next 10 to 15 years, there's going to be a lot of work that's going to be needed in Maui. So the trades have been building up their workforce by having training areas in Maui and potentially on the West Maui side, so that young men and women can start training for jobs, because they're certainly going to need them. And we've been in discussions with them, the governor and I, with the trade unions, and so that is certainly going to be an opportunity for many of our local men and women to get well-paying jobs that they may have not thought about it before, but these jobs are going to be here for a while, and it's always good to learn a craft that you can use at work and at home. So just wanted to let people know that that's workforce development that we've been focusing a lot of efforts on. So Lacey?
Yes, so we have another question asking if Erin can speak to the wait list for the NCS that you mentioned. They signed up and was told that they were placed on a wait list, and how long is NCS offered for?
That's a great question, Lacey. And I would love to talk about that. As far as NCS goes, non-congregate sheltering, I haven't heard about a wait list, so I find that very interesting that somebody was told that there is a wait list. I would love to know who that is so that we can make sure to get you connected. From my understanding is as people have been enrolling, we've also been working with Airbnb and a variety of other sources of getting folks into non-congregate sheltering. I don't know of a wait list, so that worries me that is something that was told. And Lacey, if there's any way to get that person's contact information so we can connect them with the right folks to get them into NCS, I would love to do that. The program of NCS was started faster than it has ever been done before in history. And NCS really came out of COVID in 2019, and it has happened very quickly this round, which we're very proud of and very excited to see how quickly we were able to get NCS up and running. And we currently have over 6,000 individuals in non-congregate sheltering. And so there shouldn't be a wait list that I am aware of. There's not a wait list. Anybody who is interested and was affected by the wildfire that occurred in the Lahaina area can register for NCS by going to those DRCs and speaking directly with a Red Crosser, calling 1-800-RED Cross. That's a great way to speak with a representative and get into NCS as well. And I recommend folks do it as early as possible. We have something called Safe Harbor, where everyone is welcome that was affected, and that goes till September 29th. So if you've been affected, even if you don't qualify and you're not eligible for FEMA assistance, you can register for NCS through that Safe Harbor date. And so the cutoff might be a little bit earlier than September 29th, just to make sure we're getting the right folks in and know who we have. But from what I understand, Safe Harbor goes through September 29th. If anybody has any questions or they have had any issues, please don't hesitate to have them reach out to me, and I can make sure that they are connected with the right people.
Thank you, Erin. And the next question, I believe, is for Director Tokioka. Many homeowners on West Maui have voiced desire to allow their homes to be used for displaced West Maui residents, but they're not being released from their management companies. Is there a way for them to be released from these companies so that they can benefit the residents and the people of Maui?
Okay, so I have not seen the Airbnb or VRBO contracts, but obviously, when you put something into a rental pool like Airbnb, there's going to be stipulations to that contract. So we have been working with Airbnb on, Airbnb created a program where 21 days were free to the fire victims and shelter survivors. So we will track down the leadership from Airbnb who is here and try to find out if that's a situation that they are aware of. And I don't know if it came from somebody from Airbnb or if it came from the person that was renting their home at Airbnb, and find out if that's accurate. Because if it is, then we'll make sure they know that there's just concern out there that people are trying to block people from getting into some of these units. So we can track down that information from the question. Thank you, Lacey.
Thank you. I think another question for you is about why is there blackout construction walls around Lahaina?
Okay, so the Department of Transportation, as all of you know who are from the area, in the beginning, there were people, locals and tourists alike, that were on top of the bypass area, parking their car on the side of the road, taking selfies and taking pictures of the damaged area, which was totally disrespectful. I don't even know how people could even think that that's something worth doing, but they were. And I think all of us who are not there saw it on the news. We saw people pulling over. But since then, Ed Sniffen at the Department of Transportation, along with his Maui crew, put up boulders and barricades on the side of the road so that people couldn't pull over on the side of the road. After the first week, there was National Guard and police officers along that area that would stop people from being on the top taking pictures. Now, at the same time, they were putting up dust fence for two reasons. One, you put up dust fence to block from the dust when you're doing construction, and FEMA will be doing construction in that area. So these dust fence are put up to prevent the dust from spreading, but it also prevents, people. I was shocked when we found out during some of the shelters that Easter Seals and others shared with us that there was a lot of people that were in the shelter that did not want to go back to past Lahaina, to go into Kaanapali and stay in a hotel unit there because they were just traumatized at passing that area. So part of the reasoning for the dust fence is that people don't see the areas that were burned, locals and visitors alike. We don't want the visitors pulling over on the side of the road and taking pictures. If people want pictures, there's enough pictures on the news for them to go take a picture of the picture on the news. We don't need them pulling on the side of the road and, acting like it's an attraction because it's devastating. Many families lost their lives in the fire. So that is why those black dust fences are going up. I was there on Tuesday. I believe it's almost complete.
Thank you. I think another question for Erin, how long will Red Cross pay, I believe, for non-congregate sheltering?
That's a great question, Lacey. So as I mentioned earlier, Safe Harbor is that time period when we can register folks for non-congregate sheltering. We do have a contract with the state that we are providing non-congregate sheltering for an extended period of time, depending on what those needs are. At this time, I believe it is 32 weeks that we are in contract for. And so we're working very closely with Dean and Jimmy and folks with FEMA to make sure that people have the resources that they need to move into that next phase of recovery. Hotel rooms are wonderful and they're a safe place, but having a kitchen and a full house and more space and to be able to cook your own meals is so important. And so we are working with the fabulous folks on this call to make that happen as well. One of the things that I wanted to mention that we do provide in non-congregate sheltering is we do provide wraparound services such as 3 meals a day, health services support, mental health support. We are also providing transportation at this time. We know a lot of folks have lost transportation in this event. And so for medical appointments, we have specific medical transportation set up, as well as transportation to get into other parts of Maui for folks to get to work and do laundry and any other additional things that they need to move forward in their recovery.
Thank you. I think it's kind of a two-part question, but what is considered as reasonable price for rent and how is fair market value determined?
Lacey, I'm sorry, I couldn't hear the question. Sorry.
Oh, what is considered a reasonable price for rent and how is fair market value determined? Okay.
Dean, I'll let you start with that and then I can add any comments after that if you can.
Yeah. I know that I believe that FEMA uses a HUD published fair market rent. this is available for each county. So I believe that's what they do, and it's available by location and size of the unit by number of bedrooms each unit has. So they will pay fair market rent for Maui County based on bedroom size.
There's nothing for me to follow up on that. And Sid, who left, who was here earlier, he has that information. And if the person who asked that question wants to know what it is, they can put it in the chat, and we'll get that information to them.
Great, thank you. Another question about people that have lost their cars. Do we know of any assistance to help them rent cars?
I would say that, first, the first person to turn to, or organization to turn to, is your insurance company. Many companies, especially if your car was you had a loan on your car, that fire damage and all the different types of damages on a vehicle would be part of the insurance claim. So I would start there first. If the car was paid off and your insurance policy didn't require that, the government, as far as I know right now, does not have a program that is assisting with vehicles that were damaged. I have not heard of any program like that. Erin, I'm not sure if you have, but I know there was a lot of vehicles that were damaged during the fire.
There were quite a few vehicles damaged during the fire, and I can't speak to FEMA, but I have a feeling that FEMA may have a program for transportation. And then the governor did just send out that press release yesterday in regards to his support for transportation, and I was going to pull that up for Lacey to put in the chat too. We do offer transportation at this time, and we've been looking at possible solutions as well, but we don't have anything announced at this time. And then I know there's some additional NGOs that are out there looking at ways that they can support. I wish I knew more about FEMA's program, and I don't know if FEMA's still on the call, but I do believe that they have something too. And then I'm going to see if I can find that press release real quick too.
Yeah, Sid had to go back up to the office upstairs, but I'll follow up. Lisa and I will follow up with him and get that question answered.
Okay, so I think we have time for a couple of more questions, but one of them is for someone that lost their home in the fire and they'd get still having to pay their mortgage. Is there assistance if they still need to pay mortgage for that home that they lost?
I guess that would be a FEMA question too. I don't know the answer to that question, but I can certainly. I mean, there's insurance, right? And I guess that's the thing. I mean, if people are having problems with insurance, and I think maybe one of these calls can be with insurance companies, and we could potentially split it up the first half hour with insurance, and because there's so many questions that people have. But again, what I said earlier is we want the community, we want all of you to use us as a conduit to get your questions answered. So maybe at the next meeting, we can have somebody on from the insurance industry and our insurance commissioner.
I'll just add, insurance would be the first route. Another would be to speak with your mortgage provider for a forbearance plan. Most of them will, allow you 3 to 6 months of forbearance where they'll put a pause on your mortgage payments.
Okay, and perhaps the last question, it's about people keep hearing the 18-month period being mentioned. However, recovery will take longer than 18 months. So what happens after that 18-month period? If anyone can answer that.
I totally agree. It's going to be, and I think I said it earlier, it's going to be a long process. We hope that the federal government doesn't forget, but at some point, I can tell you right now, we're incurring bills that we know as a state we're not going to get reimbursed for, because FEMA does reimbursements, but there is a lot of
I think yeah, I can't add anything to that, Jimmy. I would totally agree, and I think it would be helpful to have FEMA answer that directly too, just because I don't feel comfortable speaking for them. So
and I just based that on the conversations I hear and the experiences that I've had, including Iniki. So okay, I promised everyone that it'll start at 12 and it'll end at 1. We appreciate everyone's time and the questions, and again, use us as a conduit to get responses. That's what we're here for, and we don't go to bed until we finish the job that we do here, and we're not even close to the destruction. We're 120 miles away, but please don't stop sending questions. And don't think any question is not a smart question, because there's so many things out there that people don't know, and we want to make sure that we can help them get whatever they need, any question they need answered. So thank you for your time today, and we appreciate you all. God bless you all, and we'll catch up with you next week. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.